Of Zos HaTorah li'ola, le'mincha, le'chatos, u'la'asham, ve'lamiluim, u'la'zevach hashlamim. So we're trying to figure out ultimately what the pasuk seems to be entirely redundant, and so we're trying to figure out what the deeper meaning of the pasuk is. So the last thing that the Gemara wanted to mention is that we learned out from mincha that just as mincha is only consumed by zichrei kuhuna, so too all other karbanos are also only consumed by zichrei kuhuna. The problem the Gemara quoted is that not the problem. The issue is there's another source for that halacha as well. I mean, that halacha seems to be pretty explicitly stated of kol zachar bekohanim yochlenu. And we'll say that's by chatas and asham. So if the Torah explicitly states it by chatas and asham, why do I need another limud to teach me that karbanos are only consumed by zichrei kuhuna? To which the Gemara says, you're right. Tanoihi. In reality, there's a machlokes tanoim. Ika tap of tzadik ches. Ika dinafka lemehacha. V'ika dinafka lemehacha. We'll say, indeed, halacha lemaisa, there are two different sources for learning out this halacha, that karbanos are only consumed by zichrei kuhuna. Some learn it out from the pasuk that we quoted above, others learn it out from the context of chatos and asham. Fine, chatos. So let's remember again, so now the Gemara goes weiter. So what do we learn from the word chatos? See, here we go. Ma chatos miskadeshes bebalua. I've called miskadeshes bebalua. So let's remember again, this is kind of how we started this discussion. So what do we dash from chatos? Just like Rabbi say, if a chatos is mixed with something else, so ultimately, again, it has the ability to impart its identity on something else through absorptions. In other words, that remember again, like we started this sugya with, if you cook chatos meat with something else, so the chatos identity is absorbed into the other item you're cooking it with. So just like, again, ma chatos miskadeshes bibalua, just like a chatos could go ahead and impart its identity to something else through absorptions, afkom miskadeshes bibalua, so too again, halacha lemaisa, any other carbon that you cook with another item also has the ability to be absorbed in that item. So the Gemara, if that's chatos, asham, ma asham ein shafir v'shilya kadosh bo. So it's actually an interesting halacha. Just like when it comes to an asham, so I will say the shafir and the shilya, which is the embryo and the placenta, right? The embryo and the placenta do not have sacrificial sanctity. And I'll tell you something very interesting. So there's a good reason why in the asham, so the embryo and the placenta don't have sacrificial sanctity, and that's why Rashi points out over here, ma asham ein shafir v'shilya kadosh dahazacharhu. Because there's a good reason that an asham can only be brought from a male animal. Now you're going to see why this is very important in just a moment. So obviously when it comes to an asham, so the embryo and the placenta cannot become kadosh. Obviously they can't become kadosh on a very technical level because they do not exist by an asham. But what's interesting to note is as follows, that the same way that the placenta and the embryo do not become kadosh within the asham, so too what? Mach asham ein shafir v'shilya kadosh bo, afkol ein shafir v'shilya kadosh bo. So too again, every other carbon, the embryo and the placenta do not become kadosh as well. Now both say, now that limud is predicated on two things. Number one, kasavar, vlados kodshim b'havyasan hein kedoshim. So we'll say number one, it teaches us an important halacha, which is that apparently an animal is only considered to be a sacrificial entity when it's alive, meaning when it's in this world. When it's in this world, look at Rashi. Vlados behemos kodshim b'havyasan hein kedoshim kishenoladim hein kedoshim. The sacrificial animals can only be kadosh, can only be vested with sacrificial sanctity when they are actually alive in this world. When they're born. Below b'moy iman v'garim asham, but not in utero. Not in utero. So an animal cannot possess sacrificial sanctity in utero. Now, the truth is, there may be one exception to this rule. What's the one exception to this rule? Is bechar. We saw already again that it could be that bechar in fact does possess sacrificial sanctity from the womb, or I should say bechar sanctity from the womb, but that's really much more the exception than anything else. But in any event, we learn from asham, just like asham, the fetus as well as the placenta do not become kadosh, so too again all karbanos. So we'll say it teaches us an important halacha, which is animals only take on sacrificial sanctity when they are born and not when they are in utero. Furthermore, what else do we see from here? V'danin efshar Mishai Afshar. And I will say what else we learn is that you can learn out something that is possible from something that is impossible. So we'll say, in general, we've seen this concept before. So in other words, that in order to create a principle, the principle could be created from a source, even though the ikar derivative halacha you're trying to learn does not apply to that source. So how does this apply to this case? Because remember again, what am I learning out from Asham? I'm learning out from Asham that the fetus as well as the placenta do not become kadosh. And I'm learning that out from Asham, even though, despite the fact that what? Right? That it can't happen by Asham because Asham is a male animal. That's done in Efshar, Mishalo Efshar. But yet I learn out to all other animals, including female animals, that this halacha applies, even though my source for this halacha is a case in which this is impossible. Look at Rashi. V'don in Efshar, Mishalo Efshar, Nekevos Mischarim. I learn out this halacha by female animals from male animals. Rashi goes on with something else. So we'll say, Donin Efshar Mishai Efshar is a principle that we've seen throughout Shas. It's subject to machlokas. The Gemara is just bringing a raya over here to tell you that clearly we do hold Donin Efshar Mishai Efshar, that we learn out something that is possible from something that is impossible. Good. Next, Miluim. So we'll say, what do we learn out from Miluim? Now remember, Miluim refer to the specific karbanos that were offered up by the consecration of the Mishkan. So what do we learn from Miluim? Ma Miluim is actually very interesting. Ma Miluim mosreihem b'sreifa ve'ein ba'alei chayim b'mosreihen af kol b'mosreihem b'sreifa ve'ein ba'alei chayim b'mosreihen. So we'll say actually we learn a very interesting halacha over here. So when it comes to Miluim, look at Rashi for just a moment. It's the first of the wide lines on the bottom of Rashi. Ma Miluim mosreihem b'sreifa ve'lo hayu ba'alei chayim b'mosreihen. So we'll say what that literally means is as follows. When it came to the Miluim, anything that was left over from the sacrificial order of the Miluim was burnt. In other words, there was nothing else that you could repurpose it for. It was burnt. But yet, interestingly enough, by the Miluim, there were no leftover animals. So there's a din to burn whatever is left over from the consecration, but at the end of the day, there were no animals included in that. Look at Rashi. So Mamiluim Mosreim Esrei, for first wide line on the bottom. V'lo hayu ba'alei chayim Mosreim Demiluim. So we'll say, remember again, there were no leftover animals by the consecration of the Mishkan. We will see what that means in just a moment. Shari karban sibor hayu v'lo hofreshu shnayim la'achrayis v'gam lo avad echad mehem v'hifrish achar tachta v'nimtza rishon. So we'll say, remember again, where do you run into a situation ultimately again where you have quote unquote leftover sacrificial animals? So sometimes the most common case would be is where you went ahead and you separated for some reason multiple animals for the same purpose, or you went ahead and you separated an animal, and what happened? It ran away, or you lost it, and you separated another animal in the interim, offered up that second animal, and then what happens? You find the first. So the Gemara is pointing out over here, Rashi pointed out over here, none of that happened during the consecration of the Mishkan. So during the consecration of the Mishkan, there were no leftover animals. So therefore it becomes a paradigm. Just like ultimately again, by the Miluim, Mosreim B'Sreifa, whatever was quote-unquote leftover is burned. But there were no animals, but we did not burn any leftover animals, and we didn't burn leftover animals ultimately because there were no leftover animals. So therefore again, Af Kol Mosreim B'Sreifa Ve'im Ba'alei Chayim Mosreim. So we'll say, now look at Rashi again. It's 4 lines into the wide lines. Af Kol Kotshim Mosreim B'Sreifa Ve'im Ba'alei Chayim Mosreim. So we'll say this halacha applies to all other sacrificial orders as well. So therefore again, all other karbanos, if there's something left over from the sacrificial order, we burn it, except if it's leftover animals. So Rashi says, She'afim hayu ba'alei chayim mosrein. So we'll say, so for example, let's say a person has a leftover sacrificial animal. Where does this come up? Kigon yachid shehivrish shnei karbanos lachrayis chavaso shim yovad ha'echad yiskarben b'sheni or hifrish karban va'avad v'hifrish achar tachtav v'nim sarishon. So we'll say v'hikriv es ha'echad mehen v'es ha'sheni nosar in nosar zubasreifa kedin nosar shamilum. So we'll say, it's actually quite interesting, by the way. This Rashi points out a case over here of hifrish shnei karbanos lachrayis chavaso. I have to bring a karban. So what do I do? Which is an interesting case. I separate out 2 animals. Why do I separate out 2 animals? I only have an obligation for one. carbonic insurance, right? Because it'll be a new industry, right? Carbonic insurance. So what happens? So I separate two, either because I know I lose stuff all the time, right? Or whatever the Metzias is. So we'll say, so now I'm only offering up one. So the Gemara now tells us what's the status of that second one, or perhaps the more common case. I separate out an animal for a carbon, animal gets lost, I separated another one, offer up the replacement, and then find the original one. So we'll say, so ultimately the Gemara tells me, what do I do with the leftover animal? So we've learned about this. It depends on what the nature of the carbon is. Is it left out to graze until it could be redeemed? Can it be repurposed? We've seen all these halachos, but one thing is clear, which is what? We don't burn it. Meaning, as opposed to other aspects of the sacrificial order, if they are leftover, you have leftover wine libation, you have leftover mincha, so you burn it, right? So, not mincha as much because that's the kohanim, but you burn leftovers. When it comes to animals, I don't burn extra animals. Where do we learn that out from? We learned that out from the Miluim. Good. Shlamim. We'll say back to the Gemara. Why do I learn from Shlamim? Mash Shlamim mefaglin umispaglin, afkol mefaglin umispaglin. What I learn from Shlamim? That Shlam, just like Shlamim, can become pigul, and can also cause other things to become pigul. We'll say, what does that mean? Look at Rashi. Mefaglin es hanasachim shemchishe b'zevach af hanasachim mifugalim. Listen to this. So that Shlamim could become pigul. We spent a lot of time speaking about the halachas of pigul. I have in mind to go ahead and eat it at the wrong time, offer it up in the wrong place. Okay, whatever the machshavas are. So shlamim itself could become pigul, and shlamim can make other things pigul. How so? Well, so listen to this. If, let's say, together with my shlamim, I'm offering up menachos or nisachim, a meal offering or a wine libation, when I have a pigul machshava about the carbon, it also disqualifies any of the associated carbonic aspects. So therefore, when I have a pigul machshava about the shlam, about the carbon, it invalidates the mincha or it invalidates the nesachim. So just like that is true by shlamim, so too again that is true by all karbanos. So we'll listen to this. So we'll say we have a different version of this exchange that's brought down in the name of Rabbi Akiva. What does Rabbi Akiva say? Mincha, ma mincha miskadeshes bibalua. So just like mincha, ultimately again. So we'll say, remember again, this version is different. Let me read it first and then we'll see why it's different. Ma mincha miskadeshes bibalua. Just like mincha, ultimately again, has the ability to answer something through absorptions. Which means I will say that again, if you mix a mincha with something else, it could go ahead and infuse its identity into something else through blios, through different types of absorptions. Af kol miskadeshes bibalua. So too ultimately again, every other sanctified or sacrificial item, if mixed with something else, has the ability to infuse its identity into that item through the mixture. Now I will say, now understand what just happened, something very dramatic. We have just learned the same halacha in two different contexts. In the first version of this exchange, that same halacha of what we call balua, which I also remember again, that's how we got into this whole mess over here, right? We started with the Mishnah. The Mishnah spoke about mixtures. That's what we're speaking about, mixtures. Mixtures of items of varying sanctity. So for example, the chatos is mixed with something else. If the chatos is the rov, the majority, it infuses its identity into the minority item. So now we'll say, we're learning out the source of these halachos. So originally we learned this halacha in the context of chatas. Chatas was the source for this. That if you mix chatas with something else, chatas has the ability to infuse its identity into a secondary item through the mixture. Rabbi Akiva teaches this halacha in the context of a carbon mincha. So the obvious shaila is, I don't understand. Why do I need the same halacha stated twice? In other words, either teach me the concept by chatas or teach it to me by mincha, but I certainly don't need it by both. To which the Gemara says, yes, you do. V'itztrich lemichtav mincha, v'itztrich lemichtav chatas. In reality, I will say, I need the Torah to teach me this halacha ultimately by chatas, and I need the Torah to teach me this halacha by mincha. And I'll tell you why. Di ashma inan mincha, if it would have just taught it to me by mincha, ID direkicha mivla. So I might have thought, do you know why mincha has the ability to impart its identity to something else that it's mixed in with? Because the mincha is soft. Remember again, I'll say, what's a mincha? What's a mincha? It's flour, it's oil. So you could see, the mincha goes ahead and it wraps itself around the other item, and I can understand there's a transference of taste / identity. Aval chatas emelo. But I'd say a chatas also, which is not soft, right? The chatas is a piece of flesh, it's a piece of meat. So I would have thought that maybe it doesn't impart its identity. V'yashmin and chatas, and if it would have just taught me this halacha by chatas, mishum de karir. So we'll say, actually, it's actually very interesting. Karir, Rashi says over here, whatever that word in French is, mitoch basar av nichnas besocho hashuman ba'omko. So we'll say, I might have thought maybe meat is different. Since meat has fat, the schmaltz of the chatos meat gets into something else. So we'll say the word karir literally means to penetrate. So I might have thought again that because the chatas has the schmaltz, so therefore again that's what mamish gets into something else, and that's what causes the transference of taste. Therefore again, aval mincha, but mincha which doesn't have the same schmaltzy consistency, right? Consistency. So therefore what? Imalo, I would have thought that halacha lamaisa, maybe it doesn't transfer taste. Therefore tzvicha. Therefore we'll say I need both. So okay, so now we've established that even though we're seemingly learning the same halacha, both from chatas and from mincha, both sources are necessary in order to teach me the core halacha. Next, chatas. So we'll say this is all in Rabbi Akiva's version. Chatas. Ma chatas eino ba. So we'll say Rabbi Akiva is darshaning the same pasuk, just darshaning it a bit differently. So chatas, what I learned from chatas. Ma chatos eino ba ela min achulin. So we'll say this is actually very interesting. So what do we learn from chatos? Just like chatos, only comes from chulin, right? Only comes from an unconsecrated animal. So we'll say this is actually very important. What that means is that halacha l'maisa, you can't take an animal that already has a form of sanctity and go ahead and offer it up and then consecrate it as a chatos. So if I'm a kohen and I have a bechor animal and then I have to bring a chatos, I can't sanctify that bechor as a chatos. The chatos has to come from a chulin animal. We'll discuss why that is in just a moment. So ma chatos eino ba ela min achulin, just like chatos has to come from an unconsecrated animal, ubayom, and it can only be brought by day, ubiyado hayimanis, and the avodah must be done with the kohen's right hand. So we'll say that serves as a paradigm. Af kol, so to all karbanos, ein ba'a ela min achulin, it can only come, karbanos will say it can only come from unconsecrated animals, ubayom, can only be offered up by day, ubiyado hayimanis, and can only be done with the right hand. You know, we'll say, being a lefty by a kohen is a psul. Kohanim cannot be left-handed. Kohanim have to be right-handed. Oh, Shailan discussion halacha about an ambidextrous kohen. What happens if the kohen is naturally left-handed? Can he condition himself ultimately to be right-handed? But the idea is we see avodah has to be done with the right hand. The chatas minalan, and I will say ultimately against. Where do we know this from chatas? So we'll say now what we just said. Now again, remember this is Rabbi Akiva's drasha of the same pasuk. So what I learned from the word chatas? 3 things. Number 1, chatas has to be from chulin. Number 2, chatas can only be offered up by day. Number 3, chatas has to be offered up with the right hand. And those 3 halachos that are true by chatas become the truth, become the halacha by all other karbanos as well. So now the Gemara says, by the way, where do you know that from? The chatas minalan. Where do you know this from by chatas? We know these 3 halachos from chatas. So here we go. Amar Rav Chisda Makra, v'hikriv Aaron es parachatos asher lo. We'll say this is very interesting. Because what does the pasuk say? This is by the avodah of Yom Kippur, and Aaron will go ahead and offer up the par hachatos asher lo, which means what? He will offer up the par as the chatos asher lo. Literally means asher lo means what? Which is his. What do we darshan from there? Mishalo velo mishel tzibor velo mishel meiser. We learn out asher lo means it must be his personal property. It can't belong to the Beis Hamikdash, it can't belong to the Tzibor, and it can't be an animal of Meiser. So from here you see that in order for a karban to be proper, it must come from Chulin. Next, Bayom. We'll say, how do I know that halacha l'maisa, the karban has to be offered up by day? Now, we'll say, now, interestingly enough, this drasha is not by chatas. This drasha is by shar karbanos. So Bayom, so mibayom tzavaso nafka. So we'll say, interestingly enough, the Gemara says, by the way, we know this halacha that a karban could only be offered up, that karbanos could only be offered up by day. And I have Nusi, says the Gemara, chatas is not the source for this. The source for this actually again is in Vayikra Zayin. Asher tziva Hashem es Moshe b'Har Sinai b'yom tzavoso es b'nei Yisrael lahakriv es karbanehem laHashem b'midbar Sinai. This was by general offerings of Klal Yisrael. You see that the Torah uses dafka the word what? Mi bayom, right? Mi bayom tzavoso. Ultimately, again, the day of its commanding. So you see from here that what? Karbanos have to be offered by day. If I have this pasuk over here, then I don't need the pasuk by chatos, because this pasuk is all encompassing. To which the Gemara says, "You're right." Kedei naspa. Rabbi Akiva only brought in the yom aspect in passing, right? Kedei naspa means just in passing. You're right. Rabbi Akiva didn't mean to say that the ikra halacha is learned out by chatos. It's really learned out over here. Biyado hayimanis. Both now in general, the Gemara says also by avoda, we know that it has to be done with the Kohen's right hand. Midirabba bar barchana nafka. Both say we learn this from the same. Rabbi Akiva makes it sound like we're learning it out by chatos. It's not true. We actually learn it out elsewhere. Where from Rabbi bar barchana? What did Rabbi bar barchana say? Da'amar Rabbi bar barchana amar Reish Lakish. Kol makom shene'emar etzba ukehuna eino ela yamin. Both say wherever the Torah uses the lashon etzba and kahuna. Etzba and kahuna always means what? Always means right hand. If you look at Rashi, Rashi says over here, it's 2, 4, about 8 lines up from the bottom. Etzba kahuna, va'amar mar le'el, kol makom shene'emar etzba kahuna eino ela yamin, midra bar bachana nafka, v'kasaka daitcha o etzba o kahuna, ve'en lecha ba'hol, elu shelo ne'emar koin bak rabasan. So we'll say ultimately again, Rabbi bar bachana says, essentially wherever it says etzba or kehuna, that teaches me that what? That it requires the right hand. So therefore, I'm going to say, you see from here, Rabbi Akiva is making it sound like the din of the right hand is learned from chatos. It's not true. The din of the chatos is learned elsewhere, to which the Gemara says, you're right, kedei naspa. We'll say kedei naspa means the same thing. Rabbi Akiva did not mean to say that the ikar halacha is learned out from chatos, but rather, again, he brings it down here in passing. In passing, this is not the primary source. It's just brought down here in passing. Good. V'baisem. The other possibility is Savarla Reb Shimon Damar Etzba Lo Baya Kahuna. But the other possibility ultimately is what? That he holds like Reb Shimon. What does Reb Shimon say? Reb Shimon has an interesting derivation on this halacha, or an interesting, spin on this halacha. Damar Etzba Lo Baya Kahuna. Wherever it says Etzba, I will say Etzba always means right hand, even if it is not modified by the word kahuna. Kahuna baya etzba. But kahuna by itself, Rabbi said, doesn't automatically mean right hand, unless it's accompanied by what? By the word etzba. So etzba, right? Etzba doesn't need kahuna. Kahuna needs etzba. Rabbi said, either way, what comes out is as follows, which is, avoda must be done by the right hand, and the source for that does not appear to be chatos, but the source of that seems to be elsewhere. Rabbi Akiva just brings it down by chatas kedei naspa in passing. Good. Weiter. Says the Gemara. Asham. What do I learn from Asham? Ma Asham ma'atzmosav mutarin. Af kol atzmosav mutarin. I will say just like by Asham, the bones are mutar. You could do it the bones whatever you want. Look at Rashi, for example. Ma Asham atzmosav mutarin. Lasos mem kelim. So we'll say, for example, let's say you want to make bone china, right? You want to make bone utensils from the bones of the asham. You have the right to do so, right? There's no nosar or anything by the bones. So just like by asham, you can go and you can use the bones. So too by other kabbalos, ultimately again the bones are mutar. So Amar Rava says, so we'll say now, okay, so that effectively ends the drushas from that pasuk. Now we'll say, just for the end of the parak, we're going to jump back a little bit, back to the halachos concerning the splattering of blood. So Amar Rava says as follows. Pshitali, it's obvious to me, Amud Beis, 98b, top of the page. Pshitali, it's actually a fascinating case. Pshitali, dam chatos lemata, v'dam ola lemala. So listen to this case. So the Kohen has the following situation. Now remember, I want to point something out. We learned about the halachos concerning kibbus, the obligation to launder the article of clothing if sacrificial blood splashes on the clothing. It is important to remember, the din of kibbus only applies to dam chatos. It's a special halacha that it does not apply to other forms of sacrificial blood. Only dam chatos. So now watch this case. Case over here is dam chatos lamata. So the Kohen goes ahead and he has a splattering of dam chatos on his clothing. And then what happens? The dam ola lemala. and then after the dam chatas splatters on him, what happens? The dam ola splatters on him afterwards, right? The dam ola splatters on him on top of that. So we'll say, what's the halacha? Ta'un kibus. It's clear that halacha lemaisa, there's an obligation to launder the kol. Now look at the tab Rashi, tab dechesam b'deis, dam chatas lamata v'dam ola lamala, nafal dam chatas tchila ala beged, v'chazer v'nitas dam ola al osa kesem. So we'll say again, dam chatas comes first on the beged, dam ola splatters on top of that stain, ta'un kibus. So obviously you require kibus. Why? The dam chatas nogea bebeged ubalua bo. Because we'll say, since the dam chatas is there, first, it's touching the beged and it is absorbed in the beged. Fine, that's the easy case. Next, Bay Rava. We'll say, listen to this case. Bay Rava. Dam ola lemata, v'dam chatas lemala mahu. We'll say, Tzadik Chesam, base 98b, 3 lines down. What about the following situation? Dam ola lemata, so we'll say here, the dam ola spritzes on the coin first, v'dam chatas lemala. And the dam chatas then spritzes on the coin on top of the dam ola. So it's dam ola first, same spot afterwards, dam chatas on top of it. Mahu, what is the halacha? Mishum nogeahu. So we'll say, so now here's the chakira. When we say that a beged which has dam chatas in it or on it, requires kibus, why is that? Is that because ultimately, so let's learn it. Mahu, mishum nogeahu. We'll say, is it that the dam chatas is touching the beged, and therefore again that's why it requires kibus? Well, if it's about touching the beged, then v'hanogea. Ultimately, again, we'll say in this case, is the dam chatas touching the beged? Is it touching the beged? Yes, touching the beged. Meaning, again, remember it's certainly on the beged. It's there. So if it's about a question of negia, if it's about a question of touching, and touching ultimately again creates the obligation for kibus, then the dam chatas is touching the beged. O dilma mishum baluahu. But the other possibility is, it's not just about touching, but rather what? It has to be absorbed. The Rabbi say, Vaha lav baluahu. Now the Gemara makes the assumption, Rabbi say, that if the dam ola was there first, it's the dam ola that gets absorbed into the beged, and it's the dam chatas that kind of sits then on top of the beged. So the idea over here is, it's touching the beged, but not absorbed in the beged. So as I said, the fundamental shaila is, what triggers the obligation of kibus? Is it nigia or is it blia? Is it touching or is it absorption? The nafkamina will be in this case, where the dam ola is there first, the dam chatas spritzes on top of it afterwards. Is there nigia? Is there nigia? Yes. Is there blia? No. So I asked the Gemara, Hadar Pashta, the Ein Tu'un Kibus. He answered after, he said, no, in a case like this, ultimately, again, there is no obligation of kibus. There is no obligation of kibus. We'll say, so apparently the Gemara is saying, halacha l'maisa, that if the dam ola is there first, the dam chatas comes on top of it afterwards, that there is no din of kibus. Apparently because the din of kibus is triggered not simply by negia, but it's triggered ultimately, again, by blia. Says the Gemara, we'll say, next case. Amar Rabba, we'll say this is actually very interesting. Pshitali, so it's obvious to me, dam al bigdo chotze. So we'll say this is a general halacha. That let's say again, I have a garment that needs to be immersed in the mikvah because it is ritually impure. Right? It's tameh. So what happens? Rabba says it's obvious if I have a blood stain on that garment, that blood stain will serve as a chatzitza, as an interposition with the mikvah water. So in other words, will validate obviously the existence of the stain. By definition, is a chatzitza. Okay, so I'll say so that's good. Nobody Rashi says chotzeitz le'inyan tefila bebeged shenitba. The beged is something I have to immerse it in the mikvah. If there's a blood stain on it, that blood stain is a chatzitza. We'll say now listen to this. This is really fascinating. V'im tavachu. We'll say what happens if I'm a butcher. Right, I'm a butcher. Now, what's the chap if I'm a butcher? Rashi says im tabachu she'eno makpid bedam sha'al bigdo. Right, the butcher, at least again in Talmudic times, was not makpid if there was blood on his clothing. Now we'll say now the chap over here is like this. Doesn't mean when he's standing behind the counter, right? But but hakpada also means what? Even when he's outside. If I'm a butcher, okay, it's during the not on Shabbos, but it's during the week. I walk around with blood on my clothing. It doesn't bother me. So we'll say one of the important halachas when it comes to chatzitzos for tevilah, and this comes up all the time with tevilah, with hilchos tevilah by nida, which is the concept of chatzitza. There are two different types of chatzitzos. There are some things which are objective chatzitzos, but sometimes the halacha of chatzitza is very much subjective. The halacha of chatzitza sometimes says, if this is something that I would not want on my person, or in this case again, on my clothing, that's a chatzitza. So Rava says the general assumption is a person doesn't want a blood stain on their clothing. So therefore, again, it's a chatzitza. It will prevent the tefillah from being effective. However, if I'm a butcher and I don't mind blood stains on my clothing, then einochinami, it's not a chatzitza. Fine. Vim tavachu einochotzeitz. Good. Revav al bigdo. But let's say I have grease on my clothing. Grease on my clothing. Chotzeitz. So we'll say, so the grease, ultimately, again, the grease is a chatzitza. Vim mocher revav. But we'll say, if I'm a grease merchant, right? I'm a grease merchant. I sell schmaltz. That's what I do. I sell grease. Right? So we'll say, so what happens? Vim mocher revavu einochotzeitz. So we'll say it's the same logic. It's the same idea. The idea is, if because of my profession I don't mind these stains on my clothing, therefore what? Therefore halacha l'maisa they do not serve as a chatzitz. And I will say, now watch this. This is so interesting. By Rava, dam urivav al bigdo mahu. We'll say, what happens if what? I have blood and grease on my clothing. Right? Blood and grease on my clothing. What is the halacha? Do those stains serve as a chatzitza ultimately again for tevilah or not? So I don't understand what the shaila is. Im tabachu, so if I'm a butcher, tevach le mishum revav. So if I'm a butcher, then what? Then what? The blood is okay, but what? The grease ultimately again will be problematic. V'imocher revavu, and if I'm a grease salesman, then what? Tevach le mishum dam. Then the grease is fine, but what? The blood is a chatzitza. So says, what's the shaila? We'll say, isn't that interesting? Lo tzicha de'avitha v'ha. We'll say, what's the issue over here? I do both. Right, I do both. Baruch Hashem. I like to diversify. So I'm a butcher and a grease salesman. I do both, and therefore, again, I will say. So therefore, it's common for me to have both of these stains on my clothing. So watch this. So we'll say this is actually interesting. So the Gemara says, "Achadalo kapid." So the Gemara says, "David havaha achadalo kapid atarti kapid odilma atarti nami lo kapid." So we're saying, the general assumption is that a person is not makbid on having the stains of his trade on his clothing. So if I'm a butcher, okay, I'm going to have some blood. It's fine. It's not. I don't mind it. I'm a grease salesman. I don't mind it. But let's say the shayla is, if I do both, do we say that most people still want to maintain some level of clothing cleanliness, and therefore, even if they're not going to be makbid on one type of stain, everybody's going to be makbid on two types of stains? Or do we say no, that as long as those stains are associated with my professional life, 1, 2, 3, whatever it is, if they're reflective of my trade, I don't mind it, and therefore it's not a chatzitza. So I'll say, so this shaila only comes up obviously in the situation where the guy is both a grease salesman as well as a butcher, to which the Gemara says, teiku. To which again the Gemara says, if this comes up, you'll have to wait till Mashiach. I will say again, whenever you see a case of teiku like this, obviously the resulting halacha is going to be l'chumra. Right, it's going to be l'chumra. So if, let's say again, you immersed a baguette like this of a grease salesman butcher, a butcher grease salesman with both blood and grease, we would require you ultimately again to do kibos, to launder it, and then to be tovel it again. But I will say again, nevertheless, the halacha this discussion is quite fascinating and riveting. So I'll say, so again, I'll just tell you what is the halacha l'maisa. But again, what about the primary halacha l'maisa from our sugya, which is the shayla the Gemara started with before, that you have both you have a chatas and an ola blood stain, right, on the same garment, one on top of the other. Does the garment require kibur? So the Rambam really paskins just like Rava's statement. This is the Rambam in Ma'aseh Kahanos Paraches Halacha Tes. So the Rambam says, actually the Rambam brings down a lot of these halachos over here, which are quite interesting. Nitas dam chatas ala beged, v'nitas al dam chatas dam chulin ta'un kibus. So the Rambam actually phrases it in terms of dam chulin. So the halacha is, if dam chatas splattered on a beged and dam chulin splattered on top of the dam chatas on the same beged, the beged requires kibus. Aval nitas dam chulin tchila, or afilu dam ola, v'nitas alav dam chatas, eno ta'un kibus shahari lo nivlabo. But I will say, if halacha lemaisa, the chulin blood or the ola blood was there first, and then the dam chatas splatters on top of that blood, the beged does not require kibus. The beged does not require halachic laundering. And why is that? Because we see again that in order for there to be an obligation ultimately again of kibus, you have to have what? Blia. You have to have absorption. Negia is clearly not enough. Hadran alach dam chata. So we'll say mazel tov. New parak, new mishnah. Tvul yom. We'll say we're going to get into some of the halachos concerning kohanim. This is really interesting. Tvul yom. So we'll say Tvul yom is a kohen. Who has gone to the mikvah, but who still requires Herav Shemesh. He still requires nightfall in order to go ahead and partake of sacrificial items. Umechusar Kippurim, we'll say Mechusar Kippurim again is the same thing. A kohen who still requires, he is tahor now, but he still requires certain types of karbanos to affect his atonement. The halacha is Eino Cholkin Bekachim Lechal Be'erev. We'll say they cannot receive a portion of sacrificial meat to eat in the evening. So we'll say, what it's saying over here is as follows. We're going to see the general principle of the Mishnah is that if you are not fit to eat a korban at the time of slaughter, you cannot eat it later on, even when you become fit. So for example, if at the time the korban was slaughtered, the kohen was a Tvul Yom, or he was Mechusar Kippurim. So again, right now his status is such that he cannot eat karbanos, even though later on, that same evening, where the korban is still consumable, he will be fit, he is not permitted to partake of it. Onein, so onein noger, we'll say take out that eno. An onein, we'll remember again, so we'll define the scope of this, but an onein, the halacha is permitted to touch a korban. In other words, an onein, who is someone who has just endured the loss of a close relative prior to the levaya, ultimately, again, we see is not permitted to do avoda, but he is permitted to touch a korban. Ve'ino makriv. So meaning what it's saying is an onein can't do the avoda, but there's no tumah associated with the onein. V'haraya, if he touches the korban, it does not invalidate the korban at all. Ve'ino cholik le'achol la'erev. Similarly, again, I will say, the onein is not permitted to take a portion of sacrificial meat that evening. In other words, I will say, we eat because at the same principle, even though that night after the levaya, he'll be permitted to consume sacrificial items, because he can't eat it now at the time that it's being offered, therefore he can't eat it that evening as well. Ba'ali mumin. So we'll say if a kohen possesses a mum, bein ba'ali mumin ovrin, bein ba'ali mumin kavuin, whether it's the type of mum that is permanent or it's the type of mum which is passing, so cholkin v'ochlin. So we'll say this halacha is going to be problematic because it seems to contradict that. That's what we just said before. So even though these individuals cannot avalo makrivin, even though these individuals ba'ali mumin, we'll say whether it's what's called the mum kavua, which means a permanent mum, or a mum over, or a passing mum. He has a broken arm. Right now it's a mum, but ultimately again it will be healed and he'll be fit. So we'll say so the Mishnah says they are not permitted to offer a korban, but what? Cholkin va'ochlin. They are permitted to eat a portion of sacrificial meat. So now the Mishnah says a principle. I will say now the Gemara is going to raise that seems to contradict what we just said before, but we'll see that in the Gemara. Kol she'ena roi la'avoda ena cholik babasar. We'll say here is the principle. Any kohen who is not fit to do the avoda does not receive a portion in the meat. The chol she'ein lo babasar, and I will say anyone who does not get a portion of the meat, ein lo ba'oros, ultimately again also doesn't what? Doesn't get a portion in the hides. Now also we're going to talk about this because this was a source of important income for the Kohanim. The Kohanim were entitled to the hides of the animals. But you could only eat the meat if what? You're able to participate in the offering. And you can only get the hides if you're permitted to eat the meat. Afilu tame b'shas zrikas damim, v'tar b'shas hekter chalaf, and eno cholik babasar. And also now the Mishnah just gives an example of this. Even someone who is tame at the time of zrika, but he becomes tar by the time they're offering up the limbs or the fats, nevertheless, eno cholik babasar. He does not get a portion in the meat. I will say this is the principle. The principle is the only time you get a portion in the meats, and by extension the hides, is if what? Is if you are fit for service at the time of the offering of the korban. Shnei amar hamakriv estam hashlamim v'esachil v'nei Aaron lo yiyeh teishok hayam elamana. So we'll say it is only he who is ultimately again makriv. It is only in the individual who is already fit at the time of the hakrava, at the time of the offering of the korban, who has a right to share in the portions of the korban. So we'll stop over here for today. I'll share with you a short idea on the parasha. I'm sorry? Oh, we're gonna see. We're gonna qualify what point in the korbanic process do you actually have to be fit. So we'll say So say this week we have the great schos to begin Chumash Devarim, and again, we always begin Chumash Devarim with a tinge of sadness, as Chumash Devarim, Parshas Devarim, is always Shabbos Chazon, always the Shabbos before Tisha B'av. So we'll say there's a dramatic episode that occurs in the parsha. The pasuk says, "Be'ivah hayardin be'eretz Moav." So again, remember, all of Chumash Devarim, amazing enough, all occurs in the Transjordanian lands, the lands which ultimately, again, will become the property of the 2.5 tribes. So, amazingly enough, Moshe Rabbeinu yearns so badly to enter into Eretz Yisrael, and to a certain degree, he did enter into Eretz Yisrael. It just wasn't yet part of Eretz Yisrael, because the Transjordanian lands only become part of Eretz Yisrael after the tribes of Reuven and Gad help lead the battle for Kibush of the rest of Eretz Yisrael. Then those Transjordanian lands become part. So amazing enough, Moshe Rabbeinu stood in Eretz Yisrael. It just wasn't consecrated as Eretz Yisrael yet. So the entire Chumash Devarim takes place standing right by the Yarden. So the pasuk says, "Be'er Yarden Eretz Moav, Hoyel Moshe be'eres haTorah azos." Moshe Rabbeinu begins literally to translate the Torah. Be'er Moshe es haTorah azos. So Rashi HaKadosh says something amazing, which is B'shivim Lashon. Moshe Rabbeinu translates the Torah into 70 languages. 70 languages. So interesting stuff. Simple question: why? Why do we need a Torah in 70 languages? So some of the Mepharshim say it's for the nations of the world. But Bepashtos, remember again, Klal Yisrael doesn't speak 70 languages. So why is there a need ultimately to go ahead and translate Torah into 70 languages? Now the Rebbe amplifies the question, and the Rebbe says something very interesting, that if you look throughout the Torah, so you'll find that there are certain foreign phrases included in the Torah. For example, we'll say, and there are a couple of them that hit very close to home. One of them, that's a general idea, is that Yaakov and Lavan have their fallout. Remember, Yaakov runs away from Lavan, and ultimately, again, Lavan catches up with him. They make a treaty. How do they go ahead and solidify their treaty? They make a pile of stones, which essentially becomes a no-cross line. You stay on this side of the line, I'll stay on that side of the line. So the pasuk says that Yaakov called this pile of stones Gal Eid, and Lavan called it, right, Yigar Sadusa. So the Rebbe asks, I don't understand, why do I need that information? Yigar Sadusa is not Hebrew. It's some type of biblical Aramaic or something else. Why do I need that in the Torah? There's another piece, which is more Lemaisa. We'll say the pasuk by Tefillin says, Vayula totafos bein einecha. So Rashi HaKadosh already points out that what? Totafos does not have a Hebraic origin. Totafos, Rashi says, is actually made up of two foreign words. Rashi says, Tat bekafsi, or Tat bekafsi, and Pat ba'afriki. So Tat in kifsi or kisbi, some foreign language, means two. Pas ba'afriki means two. 2 and 2 means 4, because tefillin has 4 compartments. Great. So now I know, and if somebody asks you, tell me, do you know a word in Kapsi? I happen to know a word in Kapsi. You know a word in Afriki? I happen to know a word in Afriki. By the way, do you not know to say 2 in Afriki? Funny, you should ask. I do. What do I need that for? So the Rebbe says something amazing. I want to read to you the Rebbe's words. He says, "V'HaKadosh Baruch Hu amabit mereshes achris." The Ribbon Shalom, who always sees the end from the beginning, Shera she'yisrael tzrichin liyos b'galus. The Ribbon Shalom saw, say, even before we entered into the land of Israel, the Ribbon Shalom saw that we were not going to stay there forever. The Ribbon Shalom saw that we'd be in and we'd be out. Lazek chasav batorah lashon shal shara umos. Sha'al yidei zeh yeh lahem achiza b'chiyus shalahem. The Rebbe says that ultimately, again, language represents the lifeblood of every single nation, because the way you express yourself is core to your identity. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu do? The Ribbon Shalom sprinkles within our Torah Kedosha foreign languages and foreign dialects to tell us what? That when you're in Eretz Yisrael, it's going to be beautiful, but you're not always going to be in Eretz Yisrael. There's going to be diaspora, there's going to be dispersion, and sometimes we think that when we're not in our land, our ability to connect with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and our ability to connect with our Torah is non-existent. It's not true. What's the raya? You open up the Torah Kedosh and you find foreign words, foreign languages to teach us that Torah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can be found wherever and whenever we are. Eretz Yisrael possesses an incredible Kedusha that cannot be replicated. And Eretz Yisrael offers us a connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is unique and singular to the land. But lest you think that Torah can only be experienced, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu can only be experienced in Eretz Yisrael, that is an unequivocally false statement. V'haraya, the Ribono Shel Olam puts in foreign words from foreign languages in our Torah to tell us that wherever we are, a relationship ultimately is possible. And the Rebbe goes on to say so beautifully, he explains that's what's happening when Moshe Rabbeinu translates the Torah into 70 languages. So you have to understand this scene. We're about to go into the land. And what does Moshe Rabbeinu do right before we enter into the land? He translates the Torah into 70 languages. And what's the message? 70 represents what? Why 70? Why 70? We assume this is the number, that's the nations of the world. Moshe Rabbeinu translates the Torah into every single language known to man to teach us one incredible lesson. One sombering and one incredibly hopeful and optimistic. The sombering one is, you're going in now, but you're not always going to be here. But the optimistic and hopeful one being, no matter where you go, you can find Torah, you can find spirituality, you can find connection. You could have that relationship to the Ribono Shel Olam wherever you geographically or spiritually or emotionally are in this world. Wherever you are, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there with you. And he gives them this message right as we're about to go in. Because the Ribono Shel Olam is the Hamabit Mireshis Acharis. The Ribono Shel Olam is always looking out for us. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always pre-planning. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu always has the plan in store for how to lift us up even in the aftermath of profound failure and profound tragedy and hurt. That is the godless of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He always plans that. As we're about to enter into the land, we're already planning ultimately again to be spiritually sustained when we have to even. You know, Shabbos Chazon, I'll tell you, I was saying to someone that when you open your heart and you open your neshama, there's an incredible heaviness to these days. It's almost like you feel like a sense of foreboding. There's a heaviness. Even Shabbos itself is colored by the fact that we go from Shabbos right into Tisha B'Av. Right? There's a heaviness. But a person has to be careful to make a distinction between what we call atzvus and yeosh. Atzvus means sadness. Yeosh means despair. What's the chilek? What's the nafkamina between them? So, a person is sad, I'm sad. But sadness does not mean the exclusion of optimism. I'm sad, I'm broken, I'm tzibrochen. I feel hurt and I feel so profoundly sad, but I'm not devoid of hope and optimism. I believe that ultimately, again, things will be good. I believe that ultimately, again, I'll pick myself back up. I believe Netzach Yisrael lo yishaker. I believe that the Rebbe Shalom has my back. I believe that I can regenerate. I can believe that I can rebuild. I believe that I can get back up. I believe in that. What's Yeyosh Abosai? Yeyosh means, oy. It's terrible. It's horrible. What's going to be tomorrow? It's probably going to be horrible and terrible. And what's going to happen in 1,000 years? Well, it's been 2,000 years of Galus, so I kind of have to brace myself for what's going to be in the future. That's Yerush. We'll say, so which one do we subscribe to? So we're all Hasidim of Rabbi Nachman, of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak and Rabbi Nachman. And one of Rabbi Nachman's most important phrases is, Ein Yerush ba'olam klal. There is no Yerush in this world. Atzvus, unfortunately, there's sadness. There is sadness in this world. We're going to have a day of sadness, unfortunately. Profound, heartbreaking sadness, but not Yerush. Ein Yerush ba'olam kal. There is no Yerush Rabosai. The Jew is not allowed to have Yerush because Yerush means the absence of hope. Yerush means the absence of optimism. Atzvus I have, but no Yerush. Say, what's the raya? So Rabbi Nachman, I always love the same with Rabbi Nachman. So I always wondered, like, okay, Rabbi Nachman says, and I will say, by the way, the Rebbe, I don't know what this will have to end. The Rebbe doesn't say Ein Yerush ba'olam. He adds in a very important modifier, which is klal. Klal means, I will say, some people might say, well, you can have a little bit of Yerush. Everybody needs a little Yerush. What's life without a little bit of Yerush, right? No, Ein Yerush ba'olam klal. There is no Yerush at all. Where does the Rebbe get this from? The Rebbe gets this from his Rebbe, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak Berditchev, of Be'ever Yardin Be'eretz Mof Chil Moshe Be'er Es HaTorah. So Moshe Rabbeinu says, Is there going to be atzvus? Yes, you're not going to stay in the land forever. There's going to be death, there's going to be destruction, there's going to be exile, there's going to be disaster, there's going to be incredibly hard times. There's atzvus, but there's no yeush. Why is there no yeush? Because wherever you are, you always have the ability to have your Torah. Wherever you are, you always have the ability to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Wherever you are in life, wherever we are as a people, we always have the ability to tap into that which is most special, which is our relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our relationship with our Torah, and our relationship with our mitzvos. So yes, we have a day of atzvos, but Moshe Rabbeinu reminds us, Ein yeyosh ba'olam klal. It's true in our national lives, but it's also true in our personal lives. We undergo difficult circumstances, but the most important thing to realize is atzvos, unfortunately, is part of the fabric of the human condition. But yeyosh has absolutely no part, has no place in our Judaic lexicon. Sadness, yes, but a sadness without hope, a sadness without optimism doesn't exist. Be'evar Yardin be'eretz Moav, ho'il Moshe be'eretz HaTorah. There are difficulties, there are challenges, with incredible hope and with incredible optimism. Sure.